Sarah?
Rex Owens,
Here?
Ginger Byer,
Here.
Heather Barkholz,
Here.
Mary Bell,
Here.
Mark Chin, Sandy Patelli,
Here.
Teresa Stevens,
Here.
Rohit Vaidya,
Here.
Ken Wenzel.
Here.
Excellent. Okay. Approval of the February 11th minutes. Did anyone have any changes, additions, deletions?
Second.
Great. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. Bills presented for payment. Sarah?
So today they were $753.60.
Big month.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, Sarah, the budget reports.
So those were included in the packet on Friday, and there's not really anything unusual to note on those for this month.
Anyone have any question of the budget reports? Okay. Motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, citizen appearances. I don't believe we have any. Business of the board president. I have several things. The first thing is Teresa needs to leave for parent-teacher conferences tonight, and we don't want to be responsible for her missing those. So I would like us to consider changing the order of business and to take up item 8B, consideration, discussion, and possible action on the library expansion now, so that Teresa can be here for the discussion, because that is coming up on Tuesday, the 16th, before the committee of the whole. Would someone like to make that motion?
I'll move to.
Support.
Second that.
Thank you. All those in favor of changing the order of business, say aye.
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 Thank you. Okay, so Swetha, is this where you want to show us your presentation, or?
Yeah, sure. That I would love to show. I have a presentation prepared for the committee of the whole if there is an opportunity for me to share the library's expansion project. And I thought, and I wanted to obviously share it first with the library board. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and it might be good if you're not on mute to go ahead and mute so we don't get an echo. So. Can everyone see the slides? So it's just 7 slides, and I'm going to go ahead and start it from the. So thank you for the opportunity to share the library's expansion project and what this will mean for our community. We are at a critical time where we cannot afford to delay an expansion that has the opportunity for our residents to transform their lives by discovering their potential and gaining confidence through the resources and services we are here to provide. The next 2 slides take us through the library's expansion timeline. So the current library was built in 1998 and is a 36,000 square foot facility, which accommodates the Friends Read Before bookstore and the Sun Prairie Media Center. Even in 1998, the library board at the time and library staff knew that the city of Sun Prairie was rapidly growing. So in 2005 and again in 2008, the library board and library staff at the time conducted space needs assessments. And the projections at that time very closely matched what we are realizing today and what we actually project, what we are projecting for the future. So in 2018, we knew the time was ripe and we were at a critical juncture. So we contracted with FEH Design and had an architectural analysis process with a lot of public engagement, 10 focus group discussions, as well as a advisory task force comprised of over 50 residents, and a 2-day design charrette workshop right in the open space of our library that was open to all community members. In October 2018, the library board received a 140 plus page report from FEH Design, and the library board took a few months to study the report without making a recommendation. Then in April 2019, after a few months of studying the report, the library board asked for FEH to do a further study to actually shrink the recommended design concept. At the time, FEH Design had come up with a library facility of about 90,000 square feet. The new design that they came up with gave us a library of 74,000 square feet. And that was the design that the library board approved and presented to the Committee of the Whole. The Committee of the Whole gave a full endorsement at the time of this library. But between May of 2019 and the fall, several other city projects came to light, and the Committee of the Whole asked for further study to consider modification of the library's expansion project, and to also provide data for just the immediate repairs needed. So in January 2020, a further modified expansion project design was put into place by FEH Design, and in February 2020, the library board approved the mid-level option of 55,000 square feet. And then, as everyone knows, March 2020 happened, and all of the large city projects, including the libraries, were put on pause. This year provided us an opportunity to reflect and witness the great challenges our residents are facing and will continue to face even after COVID-19 infection is no longer on the forefront. The year has further magnified the existing disparities, particularly those related to racial inequity. This next slide shows the broad conceptual design of the expansion. So whether the building is 90,000 square feet or 55,000 square feet, this was kind of the broad level concept that came out from the charrette workshops. The next slide that I have demonstrates what we can achieve with an expansion versus what we face to lose if we fail to act. A failure to act has negative financial consequences for the city, as well as an unsustainable future for public library services. I'd like to focus and elaborate on the positive impacts for our community. An expansion of our public library has the ability to transform lives through lifelong learning experiences, workforce development, broadband access, and information access. An expansion provides the opportunity to enhance collaborative partnerships with our partner agencies, including the Sun Prairie Area School District schools, private schools, preschools and daycares, community schools, neighborhood navigators, Sunshine Place, Colonial Club, Boys and Girls Club, the Tenant Resource Center, Second Harvest, WorkSmart, and Project Recovery. In addition, an expansion provides the ability to bring more talented performers and presenters from all backgrounds to our patrons, where they share their skills and knowledge with the Sun Prairie community. Physical collections are the most heavily used resource in public libraries. This continued to be the case for us, even during COVID, as our library staff stepped up and patrons took advantage of Librarian's Choice, Curbside, and drive-up window services. The expansion gives us an opportunity to enhance our collection, to provide the space to include more own voices, authors, and illustrators, to ensure authentic voices and artwork have the space they deserve on our shelves. An expansion would allow us to provide the collection space to support patrons with visual, hearing, learning, language, and cognitive differences. An expansion would give us the space to sustain inclusivity efforts. An expanded space gives us room to provide the needed technology to support students and workers that are studying and working remotely. An expansion gives us the space so that patrons can meet in small groups and one-on-one to receive information and support for employment opportunities, financial security, and overall health and well-being. Services that assist in narrowing the socioeconomic gaps and divides that have historically marginalized our communities of color. We have a beautiful library with a highly skilled and knowledgeable staff. Public libraries are a trusted institution regardless of one's identity. Addressing the end-of-life mechanical issues at the time of the expansion would mean less disruption for our patrons. It also demonstrates the city's commitment to not only holding on to this gem, but giving our library and our city a renewed opportunity to thrive and shine. This next slide is a breakdown of the costs, which is an investment in ourselves, in our community, and in our future. The slide has the assumption of fundraising and the assumption that we would be able to fundraise $3.5 million. As you can see, with fundraising, it would cost $44 a year on the average home. With no fundraising, it would be $62 per year on the average home. With the support of the city, this last slide outlines our next steps in our library's next chapter. Thank you. Go ahead and stop my share, and if anyone has any questions or comments or suggestions.
I thought that was wonderful, Swetha, especially that last slide you really paused on with the pros and cons. I think that's really impactful, and also just the way you were telling the story, I think is exactly what we need to hear.
Thank you.
That was really well done.
Thanks.
I can second Teresa. I think the pros, and you went on the positive side rather than going on the cons too much deep into that negative, and then we get into that hole of negativity. You probably pose more on the positive, and that's a nice USP to present to the board and to the city council. So nice, well done.
Thank you. Rex, I think you're on mute.
Story of my life. Teresa, is there anything else that we need to be supportive of you for the COW meeting?
I would just recommend going back and looking at how people have voted in the last round or two of votes and trying to reach out to those alders specifically to encourage them to go with us on this.
I start making calls tomorrow morning, and we'll be at it till I get everybody.
And Teresa, I haven't received an invitation to be a panelist on CAL yet, but I just don't think they've gotten out yet.
I just got my Zoom links at 5 o'clock tonight.
Okay.
So hopefully those are forthcoming, but if you don't have them by tomorrow afternoon, certainly reach out.
Yeah. And I'm happy, obviously, to present to Cal if you feel that it would be helpful. Or
yeah, I think that slide really, all of it just really showed the historical, how we got here. It's not something brand new. We've been working on it for several years. We've continued to show that we're willing to work with the city and continue to downsize, even though we know that in 10 years, we're going to essentially be right back here, needing more space. I think it shows good faith in all that we've done and the time, work, effort. So I think it's
Yeah, and I think there's a good, we have a good reason for why we have modified the expansion, because we have discussed that in 10 years, maybe the way for us to grow our library services may not be at this location. It may actually be that we want to invest in a branch at that point. So I think that's also being careful with the city's
Mhm.
funds.
I agree.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Any further questions or discussions? We really don't need any action on this
I
particular
think the
item.
only thing on the timeline for the last CIP, I don't know that it was March 2020. That seemed like it was in,
March 2020 was when everything was put on pause, I believe.
I thought we did overall 10-year. That's when the 10-year was presented. And then I thought we reviewed it again.
I'll look at the minutes again, but
and it was-
On the two-pager that I sent to everyone, I gave the actual dates of the meetings, and I also listed the votes, so that people know how they voted.
I had, and I'm not sure, maybe Rex, I can check with you, but I saw that Cal recommended large CIP projects to be reviewed spring 2021, and that was at the March 2020 Committee of the Whole meeting.
Okay. That's what it's showing in Rex's too. It's also March. So I guess it's
Okay.
my memory that's a little faulty.
Time flies, doesn't it, Teresa?
Apparently, I don't know. I'm still in the same place a year later. So
Yeah.
I've lost a year.
Yeah. Welcome to government.
Yeah, that too.
That's where we got the term treading water, you know. Okay, seriously now, any further questions or anything? All right, good. Thank you for the discussion. We'll now resume the regular order of business and take up item 5A, presentation of the DPI Inclusive Services Toolkit with Sean Bromer and Mark Jokum. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yoakum.
Yoakum, thank you.
Yep.
I apologize for the mispronunciation.
No worries. Before we begin with our presentation, I'm going to copy and paste into the chat window a link that I would like everyone to go to. And this is going to open up a Jamboard. It's a tool that we're going to use in order to facilitate this this discussion presentation. And so if everyone could please either open the Jamboard up in a separate window or just click on it, and hopefully it will open up to the Sun Prairie Public Library Board of Directors presentation. I see a lot of people popping in. That's great to see.
I missed it.
So it is in the chat window.
Okay.
Yep, you can click there, or you can copy and paste it into a web browser. That works too.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and as everyone gets settled, find a comfortable place to be, take a look at the slide. You should be looking at a beautiful slide of the Sun Prairie Public Library on a warm summer's day. So that's where we are. And we're actually using, this isn't Google Slides or PowerPoint. This is a tool called Jamboard that Mark is going to help us work through. So I lean on Mark for the technology help. So he'll help us with technology and with a lot of other things. But I want to thank you all for inviting us to tonight's meeting. Now, I really want to say that I'm really looking forward to this. Mark and I have been looking forward to this. We've had some wonderful discussions with Shweta, and you have a really great team here. At South Central, we've worked with staff members at the Sun Prairie Public Library on many exciting projects. Shweta and I have kind of grown up together, and we've gone through many evolutions in our professional life together. So we really like working with you, with Shweta, with the staff. And so we're really looking forward to working with the board. So now we're going to go to the second frame of Jamboard.
Mine is coming in.
Oh, okay.
All righty. Let's see.
Just getting a flashing blue line or something.
Flashing blue line.
Flashing
Well,
blue
right
line.
across,
Okay.
like a line, right across the screen, a line.
How about others? Are others in? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Let's see. So, why don't
Is there
Ken-
hit the share? Is that or not?
are you let's see. So there is a so you're not seeing it at all?
All I am seeing is the SPP PL board presentation.
Okay, and nothing else on the screen?
Nothing on screen.
All
Okay.
right. Let's
And
see.
Shweta is sharing her screen. Is that right?
Yes, our facilitator from the city asked if we could share the screen because it's
Sure.
broadcast. So yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Should I just go off then? And
Right.
Yep.
Mr. Wenzel, if you want to take a look at what is on your screen right now, Shweta is sharing it. This means that you will not get to add a few sticky notes that we've included for activities.
okay, I'm on Swethas, I think here. So, okay.
Super.
If you would like to add a sticky note, feel free. I will monitor the chat, and I can serve as a scribe for you. If
Okay.
you'd like. All right.
Okay. All right. Everybody feels okay? So we're going to go up to, do you see the little arrows for those of you who are able to get into the actual document? I want you to press the forward arrow that is to the right of the little box with numbers in it. So now, thank you, Shweta, we're going to a screen that looks like Valentine's. What do we love about the Sun Prairie Public Library? So when Mark and I were putting this together and talking with Shweta, we were thinking about what are the board's hopes and objectives for tonight's presentations. We're going to be talking about concepts of inclusion in public libraries, and we'll highlight how this work that you're doing for your library is part of the system, state, and even national movements to make public libraries more inclusive. I mean, as a matter of fact, your own director, Shweta, speaks on this topic at the national level. So Sun Prairie is very much at the lead of this type of work, at the head. We're also going to introduce the Wisconsin Inclusive Services Guide, an assessment tool for public libraries. And we're going to take everyone through a really quick example of an assessment of a board's duty, of a board's role, to show you how this tool works and how we will use it to help you evaluate your library's governance functions through an inclusive lens. So Mark and I recognize that talking about inclusion really is a deeper experience when we're physically together. And we really wish that we were meeting in person tonight. This type of conversation works best when we're sitting around the table, maybe enjoying a cup of tea together, having some kringle, but we're going to make the best of it virtually for you, we promise. So because we're in a virtual world right now, I think we all are accustomed to maybe some technical hiccups. So thank you for being patient with us. We'll be patient with each other if any technical issues arise. So to help us feel that we're together, Mark and I have built in opportunities for participation and discussion. And that's why we're using this tool. That's why we're using Jamboard. It's an application that you don't have to download. Everybody's where you need to be. You don't have to put anything new on your computer. And we're all going to be working on a shared document that we're sharing with everyone, but unfortunately, Mr. Wenzel, and it's the document that you're seeing right now. Okay?
Yep.
All right, so let's move forward to frame number 3.
Sure.
And Mark, do you want to, I guess I'll just jump in. For this first exercise, we're going to practice using the technology tools. And we want each of you to provide an example or 2, if you feel comfortable, of the first things that come to mind when we ask this question, what does inclusion mean to you?
In order to do this, one of the ways that we're going to do it is by using this tool and adding sticky notes that you can write on. What does inclusion mean to you? And where you'll find sticky notes is you're going to navigate all the way to the left of the screen and towards the middle. You can add a sticky note by clicking on it. It's sort of in the middle and it pops up as sticky note. And so something that you might do, such as belonging. And you can click on there and then hit save, and it will add your sticky note. And I'm just going to do that. And if you would like to type in the chat, I can certainly add sticky notes for you. This is just an exercise that we're doing to sort of get the juices flowing.
Okay.
As long as we're seeing Shweta's screen, I can't see this program.
Okay, so you'll want to actually go to your off this window to the browser. So when you clicked on that link, it should have opened up a window.
Well, yeah, I had one, but all I see is Shweta sharing her screen. So if I'm
Okay, let's see.
I got there. Took me a while, but I got there.
Okay, so are you all set?
I think so.
Wonderful. All right, lots of great things. Welcome, openness. I'm just going to move a couple of these because they overlap a little bit. There we go. All right. And
this looks wonderful.
Yeah. Yep.
And everything that you're adding here, we're saving this document and we'll share it with everyone. So you will have it as a document afterward. We're also going to send you in a Google slide format, a copy of the presentation. So you'll have it in 2 different formats.
Yep. These are great. Come as you are, equal access. Doesn't matter who you are to come in. This is wonderful. All right.
Okay.
That's great. So we're has everyone had a chance to add what they would like? Seeing myself when I come into the library. Yep.
There's a chat one there
Absolutely.
for you.
All right.
Oh, thank you. This is exciting to see. As a presenter, I love getting this information.
Yep. Yep. Awesome. So let's see. Are we ready to move on, or is this?
Yeah.
Okay. So this will all be saved, and I'll be sending this over. So all of these responses you'll receive as Sean had said.
So using the same sticky note tool, now think about the library. Think about the organization that you are helping to guide, and think about the library and its services, and add some examples of how the library is being inclusive now. You can provide examples of library services, but we also want you to think about you as a governing board. Okay, think about how you, as a governing board, are inclusive. And I want to give you a hint. Discussing inclusivity and thinking about it is a very first step, and it is a great example for this activity.
Yep.
Took my spot away.
There we go. Yep. And just as we had moved frames over, I see yep, everybody's moving over from 3 to 4. That's great. So I'm just going to move these.
Did you get my last one or not?
So I don't
think so.
I don't see it. Would you mind putting it in the chat again?
So when I type something in, do I just what do I go from there? How does it get sent?
So you'll hit enter.
Okay, all right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is great. This is a board that knows what's going on.
Yeah, this is really nice. Yep. So collection audits, you're doing final elimination, the Urban Sun program, anti-bias training. Yep.
Wow.
And supporting okay. Great. Thanks, Ken. I'm going to add that to the board. There we go. There we are. That's great. Yep. Remote service, that's especially important right now. So let's see. Outreach to various communities through bus and presence at Sunshine Supper and Farmers Market. That's awesome.
This is a staff that has always been innovative and on the forefront of outreach and inclusive services. So it feels really good to see all of this, and it's not surprising.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I would say that you all are ahead of the curve. So the technology that you're using tonight, this is what we're going to be doing. This is all you need to do in order to use the tech, okay? So I'm glad that we were able to add some content that will help us as we move forward, and that we can build on a little bit later in tonight's presentation. If there's nothing else to add, and those of you who are actually in this document, you can go back and add things on your own simply by using the arrows on the top of your screen. But if there's nothing else to add, I think we can move forward. Mark, if you want to take it away.
Sure. So we're going to go to the next frame. So right at the top, click on next frame. And I'll just say that a lot of our inclusive services work that we're going to be doing tonight and in the future, a lot of it is based on the inclusive services statement. And this is something that library system staff and DPI staff had put together back in 2018 or so. And I'm going to just go through the different points of the inclusive service statement. And this is really sort of a descriptor of what we mean by inclusivity as far as, say, the state is concerned. So here I'll just read that Wisconsin's public libraries are places where everyone should feel safe, welcomed, and respected in experiences such as, but not limited to, arrival at the building, intersections with library policies, perusal, use, and request of library materials, participation in library-sponsored or library-located events, interactions with library staff, passive and virtual interactions. So it's a very holistic um, statement that encompasses just the whole world of the library. So if everyone will just go over to the next frame, there's a little bit more. And I'm not going to read the this entire paragraph. But I just wanted to highlight a couple of sentences, such as including the on a concrete level, inclusive services should be visibly incorporated into all library services. The concept that libraries are for everyone should be evident through every point of access and interaction with the library. And then I'm going to skip down to the second paragraph. When libraries honor the full diversity of their communities, communities thrive. And this really just inclusivity, as you had all put on the previous Jamboard, is just really about making a library that that works for and with its communities. And I just wanted to pause for a moment if anyone had any questions before we move on. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to go over to our next frame. This is frame number 7. And this is really just some background of where we as a library system and member libraries have come from and where we're headed. So I'm just going to name out a few milestones. So early on, the focus was very much on ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and so-called special needs, so accommodating populations such as people with disabilities or disabled people. And then we really moved into thinking about inclusive services in a much broader holistic mindset. And that resulted in a Inclusive Services Institute, which held 2 in-person sessions and worked through the entire summer of 2018 to develop the Inclusive Services Assessment and Guide that we'll be working with today. And then we've really moved on from even further from there in several different ways, including hosting inclusive services check-ins and basically an idea share sessions with member library staff, putting together an outreach and inclusive services resource website that you all will have access to and member library staff have access to. And then we're looking at other statewide efforts, including the IDEA Project, Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Action Project, which is really focusing on statewide training opportunities and workshops for member library staff to really get momentum on inclusive services. And then finally, I'll mention the Wisconsin Library Association are one of the subgroups is the Inclusive Services Special Interest Group. It's a group that I have founded and am currently leading, which is basically a discussion and promotion of inclusive services on a statewide level. So what I'm going to do is move over to the next frame and hand it over to Sean.
Thanks, Mark. And I realized that we didn't tell you what Mark and I do at the South Central Library System. You can, even though everyone's job is to look at the services we provide through a lens of inclusion, Mark and I are the system's inclusive services team. So we've been working together on different aspects of inclusive services in our time together. Mark was an intern at South Central in 2017, and we were able to steal him from a library that he was working at in another county. So we really like working together and appreciate the time that you all are giving us. All right. So the frame that you're looking at, this shouldn't be a surprise to you. None of this language should be new to you at all, because this is your library's mission and vision statements. These are your board's mission and vision statement. So the work that we're going to do tonight and that we'll continue to do fits into everything that this library has prepared and planned for. This work is completely supported. You all have put all of the work in place. I always like to show boards, directors, and library staff how all of this work is tied together and how it relates to other planning endeavors and guiding principles, such as your mission and vision. So let's start at the top with that vision and mission. As you read through these two statements, start looking for ways that themes of inclusion are already supported, are already mentioned in these fundamental principles. Now, remember, your mission describes how the library provides service today, how it provides service now. It really is a daily guide. And the vision describes aspirations for future service. It's inspiration, but especially at your library, I also think that it describes current practice. Okay? So we're going to jump ahead to the next frame, just to frame everything together. So we have mission and vision. And then it was only, I think, 2 years ago, right at this time, right, Shweta and Steve, that my colleague, our colleague, Jean Anderson, and I started meeting with library staff and the management team to work with Shweta on a project in which staff did a lot of reflective and a lot of group work to develop these 3 staff principles. So this is how staff is committed to providing service to community members, to any program partners, and especially when working with one another and in interacting with everyone when they're representing the library. Now, we don't have a lot of time to read through these and really talk about the strengths of these great core values tonight that the staff created. But I want to draw your attention to these themes, the themes of these values. We have integrity, we have excellence, and community engagement. Really key and crucial themes to supporting inclusive work. I love how the library not only identified these themes, but they also identified these as active values with the verb dominant phrasing. So we're serving with integrity, striving for excellence, and engaging the community. These are action words. These aren't just concepts, it's how we do it. So if we jump ahead to the next frame, we will see really clear examples of how these core values are supported, what it looks like to serve with integrity. So for each value, staff then develop clear statements of what it looks like to actively serve. And I want you to start looking through some of the bullet points and notice words such as community and diverse, connections, and other words that are very supportive of inclusive service. And then we'll jump to the next frame, please. Thank you, Shweta. I know that this will look a little blurry on your monitor. Your eyes aren't bad. It's the way it looks on the monitor, but you will be getting a full copy of this presentation. But Mark and I really wanted to show you how all of these pieces fit together. The mission and the vision, which are listed on the side, they support the core values. But we can also see how those core values are foundational columns and how the core values also support the mission and the vision. The core values very much mirror the messages that we're seeing in the mission and vision. And as a matter of fact, that's how we started our work together 2 years, by looking at the mission and vision and talking about what does it look like to serve by supporting these two very important principles. Okay, so let's go to the next frame, please. Now, I know that this is hard to see too, and I know that word clouds are not like the most concrete way of looking at data, but I ran all of the text from the mission and vision statements and the core values and definitions through a word cloud generator. And I want to point out the word that is circled in the bottom center of this image. So the word that is circled, if you can't read it, is inclusive. And this word is the same size. It holds the same weight of as other words like information, resources, and programs. So when we look at your guiding documents, the theme of inclusivity is just as prevalent in the library's guiding documents as traditional library services, such as collections, resources, programs. And in this case, inclusive is larger. That means that it's mentioned more times than words such as literature, collections, and innovative. So what this tells us is that everyone here is thinking about inclusion, and it's valued by the people who provide service at the Sun Prairie Public Library. Are there any questions about this? Okay, so now I'll turn it over to Mark.
All right. So if everyone can navigate over to the next frame where it says Inclusive Services Institute. And I just wanted to introduce basically the creators of the Inclusive Services Assessment and Guide that we'll be working with, and that has been mentioned throughout our presentation. Both Sean and I were part of the Inclusive Services Institute and that cohort. So there is the team that put this all together. And if we just want to go over to the next frame, and here, what is the Inclusive Services Assessment and Guide for Wisconsin Public Libraries? Long title, but amazing work. It is essentially a self-assessment tool for library trustees to use to take a look at their library services through an inclusive lens. And it's divided up into a series of consideration statements that talk about a whole swath of library related activities and interactions. And then there is a rubric within in the guide to provide some kind of a quantifiable score to basically its purpose in my mind is to help zero in on an area, and then there's a reflection worksheet with which to basically plan out how we're going to address a area of inclusion that is of concern. So I'm just going to move over to the next frame. And here you should see the scoring rubric. And each consideration statement, there is 4 possible answers, and there's points in order to help quantify these consideration statements. So basically, the available answers are yes, we do this, or we have this at our library, and those are scored as 1. No, we don't do this at our library, or aren't. And no worries. I'm speaking in the abstract on purpose. No, we don't do this. It's scored as a 0. In progress, meaning that okay, we've got a plan in place and we're working on it. And those are scored as a ½ point. And then NA, non-applicable, and that answer is really meant for areas where it certainly doesn't apply. Say, for instance, do you have an accessible restroom? And say your library is a bookmobile that doesn't have a restroom, then it doesn't apply. The reason why it's scored as 1, the same as a yes, is so that it doesn't actually, when you quantify, it doesn't actually hurt the library's score, or the service area score. And so are there any questions? We will go into specifics, but I just wanted to pause for that.
And so Mark used the term quantifiable. We know that inclusive services, that we really don't want to focus only on the quantifiable, that we're looking at qualitative
Right.
values and strengths too. But this is one way that we can help library boards and staff members keep track of where we are and perhaps quantify the work that needs to be done, or celebrate the work that has already been done.
Absolutely. Yep. It's not like you're scoring your library, where it really is it is meant to be quality, or qualify library service. So for our next activity, I am going to post a link that I would like everyone to navigate to. It is another Jamboard, and this is where we'll really be doing a lot of our work this evening. And so it should, oh good, I see a lot of people here. You'll start off as who is responsible. And so I'll just wait for folks to arrive.
Thank you, Shweta. So as you're arriving, I just want to set the stage a little bit. What we're going to be talking about now is we're really looking at this assessment guide, at this tool as a point of entry, okay, as one place where you as a board can begin this work and can begin this reflective work. It's a place where we're setting everybody on the same page. And then as we work a little more on it, we can branch out and do other work. But for tonight's discussion, we are really focusing on this one tool, which was created by the Department of Instruction, by the Public Library Development Team. And I don't know if Mark mentioned it, but we're the first and only state in the nation that has anything like this. So we were on the forefront. Wisconsin often is for public library service. And I don't think any other state has anything like it. This assessment guide is something that other states are looking to, and they're aspiring to create one on their own. So we're using this tonight just to help us pull a very complex theme of inclusivity and inclusive services into where we could all focus on one discussion and one way to talk about it. But we recognize that there are so many more complexities when we do this work. So speaking of being on the same page, we're all on the same frame. And this is an actual page. It's a screenshot that Mark grabbed earlier today, and it shows an excerpt from the PDF, from the actual assessment guide that Mark, if you want to pop that into the chat so that we have it and it's on record. We're not going to make you go through it, just stay on this document. But if you want to have it for future reference, we'll make sure that you have that link now, and we'll be sharing it in the future.
The link to the guide?
Yeah.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, I know a lot of people will be interested in that.
Certainly.
So what we're focusing on for tonight is your section, is the board section. So there's a section called Who is Responsible? And yeah, the board's responsible. And your special section is the governance section. And as I said, this is a perfect way to begin your own reflection on what it means for library boards to lead with inclusion. So there are 26 items of consideration in this section, in your section. There's 26 items on this checklist, and Mark has explained how the scoring rubric works. We're actually not going to focus on scoring rubric tonight. We're just going to practice talking about these themes. And as I mentioned, just for the sake of clarity, we are only showing an excerpt from this document. So you're only getting a little teaser, the top 6 or the first 6, because these are not in any order, and boards can jump around on the checklist.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, you have essentially you use this tool as however you would like, and you can go from section to section, area to area. It is all good.
And we really like to encourage library board members to take a look at the whole document because there's pieces for library directors, for library staff, and you really see, the whole view of what it means to provide inclusive public library services. So if you all would feel comfortable jumping ahead to the next frame, and I'm going to do that too, so I don't get behind myself or in front of myself.
Yep. So it should be frame number 2, virtual participation.
Okay. So for our participation, because Mark and I are not going to be talking all night long, we have adapted a discussion facilitation tool that is used by many anti-racist and social justice organizations in their discussions for their organizations. It's actually called the progressive stack method, if anybody's interested in learning more about it. But we've adapted it a bit for tonight's discussion for this board because you're a very specific group of people. So as we go through this activity, we want everyone to feel heard and comfortable with this work. So to contribute, all you need to do is either physically raise your hand or virtually raise your hand using the Zoom tool. You can do either way. And we're going to try as hard as we can to make a list of the order in which hands were raised, okay? And we will then call on people using that list. So Mark is going to pay attention to that while I facilitate more of the conversation. And to be really clear, we also want people to let us know when you are completely finished with your statement. You can say pass or just verbally acknowledge that you're done. And we're going to take notes, so you don't have to. Feel free to take notes, but you really don't have to if you don't want to. This is part of how we're going to be helping you with this work by collecting this information. All right. And it's going to, there will be some moments of silence. That's okay. That means that we're thinking, and that means that we're learning. So I'm just going to start setting the stage. These are the questions that we're going to be going through. And we won't have a lot of time. We're not going to be able to really dig into our conversation, but we want everyone to get to feel, to experience what it's like to have a discussion like this one. So we're going to be timekeeping a little bit, and it might feel rushed. We're not trying to make anybody feel uncomfortable. We're just trying to, get you off to the rest of your evening. Okay, so let's move forward to the next frame. Oh, hey, Mark.
Mm-hmm. Oh, let's see. Oops.
Hold
on one moment.
Hold on. We have something out of order.
There we go. All right. So if everyone just wants to go to number 4. Oh, there we go.
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Maybe I was the only one who got out of order.
No worries.
Okay. So we're on frame number 4. And we want you to take a look at these 2 statements. And we're going to practice discussing, we're going to practice taking these concepts through the worksheet. Okay? So take a look at these 2 concepts. Use that same sticky note tool that Mark described earlier, the tool on the left-hand side, and simply put your initials on a sticky note and put it under the topic that you're most interested in discussing. We're going to have a vote. So we're going to talk about one of these themes, and we want to know what you want to talk about. We could have chosen something, but that didn't feel very inclusive to us. And then you can, then you can play around with moving your sticky notes too.
sticky note's not working.
Or you can let us know in the chat too, and Mark can add it if you're
yep.
comfortable.
Um,
I'm interested in the demographics of the community question.
Okay, thanks, Rex.
Thank you. All right. And
This doesn't mean that the other topic won't be discussed. These are two really important themes. So both of these will be discussed in the future. This is great. So does everybody feel comfortable with, we're going to focus on the library board reflecting the demographics of the community?
It's okay with me.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry, Ginger, I didn't see your vote until I started talking. All right. Okay. All right. So let's get our muscles going and put our thinking caps on, and let's move forward. So our area of concern, Mark, are you able to put that text in the frame, in frame number 5? Let's move forward. Are you able to grab, does the library board reflect the demographics, just so we have that in front of us?
So
I should interject at this point. We don't have data on the demographics, though.
And thank you for mentioning that. This is, I'm going to mention this at the end, but Mark and I can help you get data. So that's one of the ways that we can support you in this work. But remember that, because that's something that we need. We can put that in later.
Okay.
And I can help you with that too.
Yeah. There's other tools, right? Like the city's comprehensive plan. There are other places where we're going to pull information. So in thinking about your questions, about does the library board reflect the demographics of the community, describe the area, describe the demographics of your board as it exists right now. So this is where you can raise your hand, and we'll take, we'll see whose hand has been raised. You can also put information in the chat or use a sticky note too. We'll try it all.
Yep.
Just be patient with us.
Yep.
Or any questions that you have. If describe the area as it exists now doesn't quite make sense with, does the library board reflect the demographics of the community? Describe what you have now, or what you think you have now.
Rex, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. My concern is right now we don't have any representation from the African American community or from the Hispanic community.
Thank you.
We are also in the process of, for example, for my case, going off the required terms, and then the board will have a chance to help adjust some of those needs.
I think we have to remember that our hands are completely tied when it comes to board appointments. The appointments are done exclusively by the mayor, by statute. So we may try to influence, but in terms of outcome, I think it's at best uncertain.
So the mayor has final say.
He is the only say. it's approved by the city council.
Yeah.
His selection, but, and we have, and I have talked with the mayor at different times about different things, but you never know if that's gonna result in the outcome that you want. So what I'm just trying to say is the board really, while we may have desires for that, we don't have any direct way to influence it.
Okay. Now I see some hands raised in Zoom. And Mark, did you happen to catch whose hand was raised first? Or
I'm sorry. I was adding the sticky for.
yeah.
I believe it was Rohit.
Thank you.
Sure.
Rohit, please. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you. So I was looking at the, I do not know if the data is correct. Usually Wikipedia doesn't usually have good data, but it does have good data. So looking at the data with Sun Prairie population right now, we have around diversity wise, we have 85% white, 6% African American, 0.3% Native American, 3.7% Asian, and 1.4% other races. So looking at the diversity or the demographic of the community in our library board, I think most of the 6% African American, 0.3% Native American, and I don't even see the Hispanic community for 4.3%. So I would say even Asian, I come from Indian, but that doesn't mean I represent all the Asia. So so we definitely have a gap in the diversification of the demographic of our community in our library board. And just not taking much time, just giving Rex, I think what Rex was leaning towards was the appointment is done by mayor itself. I think he appointed me because he wanted to have some more diversity. So I do not know. I was just pulled from nowhere to be part of this wonderful library board. So I think he has an appetite. If we have the right thought, I don't want to say what mayor thinks, but I think he has the right appetite for diversity when it comes to diversity.
So that's an asset, perhaps?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And I jotted that down. Heather?
Good.
Mute. I would like to encourage us to dig a little deeper than those numbers that Rohit sourced and also considered income levels. It's a privilege to have the time to volunteer. And I think some of the members of our community that we want to target the most may not be so privileged to have that time. So I'd like to also think about creative ways in which we could engage community members. And I think that part of the appointment process with the mayor is you can apply for consideration, but that may not be widely known, and that may not be communicated to people who would be interested in having a voice on the board. And I just think that that's underutilized. So I just wanted to encourage us to dig a little deeper.
That's beautiful. I like that there's an application process too. So I'd like to move forward to the next frame. So what do you want the board to look like in the future? So think about a future, vision. What will it look like when the board represents the demographics of the community?
And this is very much aspirational vision for the library board in the future.
I saw Sandy and then Rohit.
Well, I think we are all interested in seeing our board become more diverse and seeing more communities, hopefully all communities represented by the members of our board.
Thank you. Rohit?
I think I second what Sandy just mostly, that was what she was, I was leaning towards is representation. I do not know how practical it is, but representation from all the communities who are part of the Sun Prairie region. So.
Okay. And well, now let's ask this very basic question, which is the second bullet point. Why is that important to the library and the community? What would that create?
I think it would create an understanding of what programs and what services a broader spectrum of the community actually needs and desires.
Great. So yes, your programs, services, collections could reflect that. All right. I saw Sandy and Rohit hands raised at the same time. Let's go Rohit first and Sandy second this time.
I let Sandy go.
Thank you, Sandy.
I was just thinking about the voice. Like we want all people to feel that they have a voice in being part of a community institution, and also like a level of trust.
Mm-hmm.
We want all communities to feel that they can trust our library and be a part of our library.
Oh, I like that. Someone had posted, don't tell me what I need, ask and include me in the discussion. So that's great.
Great, thank you for adding that. Okay, Rohit.
It will help actually for the communities to understand what exactly library does. From my personal experience, being a patron of the library for so many years, I used to take books and go and attend some. But when I actually became a part of the board member, I understood how much in depth, how much the library does for the community, which I would never have known just being a patron, just getting books and getting books and returning the books. That's all.
Sure. So helping all community members and all communities served really understand the breadth of what the library does and provides. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let Mark finish the sticky note, and then we'll move on to the next frame. And as we go on, we're going to see that we're going to be repeating ourselves, and that's just fine. This is how we really identify what's important. So, what steps need to be taken? We've identified some steps. We've identified some assets. And what information do you have, or do you need to work on this topic? So let's look back or think back to what we were just talking about a few moments ago, about the steps that need to be taken. Assets, and what do we need? One of the assets that I heard is the application form to be on the board. Information. We need some of that demographic information. I'm sorry, Heather, go ahead.
I think an asset is just that we're having the conversation and we're trying to open our eyes to it and see that there are gaps and acknowledge them and then work together to fill them is a important thing.
Thank you. Oh, Rohit, please.
I would probably link between the steps and the asset. I think having the application form is good, but what are we doing with that? How do we outreach or reach the application form to all the community members, whether it could be social media or whatever it is? But how does these community members know that, hey, there is a form that exists, and yeah, I can apply for that, because I do not know how many do know that there is a form that exists. So understanding which is the best possible way to get it in front of them to know, yeah, you can apply.
Sure, publicizing that, letting people know that this is something you can do, and this is how you do it. And Heather has put in the chat, are library patrons aware that they could be a member of the board? Anything else? Any hands raised? I'm so used to doing this in person, so thank you all for being patient and compassionate as we're trying to do everything here. Okay, let's move on to the next one. And this is actually our last bit of work. Reflection worksheet, part 4. And so we're on slide number 8. So this is probably more work, an example of work that the small subcommittee or the work group is really going to dig into. But like, just let's think, you know, like there are no barriers to doing this. So when we hear that Ken is going off of the board, I mean, can we begin to look at a timeline when we could start making the board composition more representative of the community that you're serving? What could that look like? What could a timeline look like?
Well, Ken's last meeting will be in May, and we're anticipating a new appointment then in June. And Martha and I are already talked and are already encouraging some people to apply.
So that's something you're already doing.
Yes.
Okay. So we're beginning in June. And knowing that, especially for this area, for this topic of concern, this is something that's ongoing. There's not going to be an end date, but we can definitely identify a start date. We're going to start in June. And how will we measure this area? How will change be visible?
Can I interject another
Yeah.
timeline item? Last month, the board created a diversity, inclusion, and equity committee.
That's
And
been
one board member will sit on that committee, and we're going to have 3 members of the community and then 1 library staff member. I would like to see this entire project done before that committee is technically created, so that they have a tool to look at when they start.
What would you like to see done? This specific topic or the entire checklist?
The entire project here. I'd like the entire project to be done so we have a product to give that committee to start their work.
Gotcha. Okay.
See.
Okay. So the entire project for the new committee that was created.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
And one of the specific outcomes we would like to have from that is some sort of job description or something for potential citizen participants of the committee, so that people really have a deep understanding of what type of work they would be doing.
Brilliant. And I'm going to, in my own notes, I'm going to indicate that you have this committee as an asset in our previous work.
Yeah. And I can also add that to the reflection worksheet. Is it EDI committee?
Okay. Yep, it is, Mark.
We're saying DEI, but.
Oh, DEI. Thank you.
DEI. And then who are you going to tell? How are you going to show, or who are you going to show that you've been doing this work?
And it could even be toward to yourselves also as the board works on it. You can hold yourselves accountable and report that way.
Heather?
It's, if I recall correctly, in setting up the diversity and inclusion committee, that they would be the ones who would kind of quantify and report on changes we make.
Thank you. Reports on the work, changes. Okay. So what we've been going through, this is just one way that we can start to look at the board's role in providing experiences that are inclusive at the library, what the board can do from your position. And this tool will help us discuss, but it's not meant to be a barrier. But it was a way to get us all started talking about a topic. So we're going to end with the final frame. If you would just move forward one more slide or one more frame. And we're talking about what we see the next steps as potentially being. Rex, you've already given us some ideas that you have and that the board will have for next steps. But tonight's conversation now is going to help us create a very basic survey. I'll work on it tomorrow. Mark and I will look at it tomorrow.
Right.
That we'll send to Shweta next week to share with all of you. Now, what we are thinking, the questions, the information that we want to know on the survey is, who wants to start doing this work? So I am getting the impression that we're not going to automatically assume that the DEI subcommittee will be doing this work, but perhaps members of that subcommittee will be interested in doing the work. So we want you to self-identify, hey, I want to work with my colleagues on the board and with Shweta, Mark, and Sean on creating something, on going through this checklist. So we're going to ask you to indicate interest. And we also want you to, as a board, we will put down the list of topics and identify the important themes that you think we need to address first, or that you need to address first. So we're really looking for, what are the big issues that you want to work on? So after we determine who the work group is going to be, you're going to determine that's the work group's job, is to determine a timeline, set up, how do we want to meet? What does that look like? And this is a group that will report back to the entire board. We were just talking about reporting progress back to the board. So this group will report back to the board, and we'll identify ways that we can keep moving forward. So ultimately, what we hope to help you as a board is to identify inclusive systems of support that are currently in place for you, for the board, and also, as Ken introduced, to help future board members realize that all board members, library directors, staff, patrons, and the partners that you work with will have unique experiences. They're coming from different communities and different experiences. So we're really looking to help you create an organization, including the board, that is unique and strong. And because of the strengths and experiences that members bring to the table, it's going to be a very dynamic, a very inclusive group of leaders. So with input from the entire board, the work group will set deadlines, meetings, and timeline for this work. I already mentioned that. And Mark and I are here to help you. We will help you in any way that you see fit. So we can, with your assistance, we also have a data services consultant at South Central. So we can pull a lot of data, a lot of socioeconomic data, any data that you're interested in that you don't have at your fingertips, we can help you find. If Shweta doesn't have it, we can help you find it. Okay. We can also help you create infographics so you can tell your community story. If you're out, giving presentations, if you're out doing recruitment for future board members, there might be something that we can help you create. We can also help you with discussion facilitation, with structure, facilitation, note-taking, whatever you need from us. You're going to tell us, and we'll figure out a way to help you with that. All right.
Sean, let me ask a question here. I might be confused, but my understanding of this endeavor was that you and Sean would the entire library board through the assessment tool that's been provided. So I was anticipating any subcommittee, any work outside of the entire board, and that one of the objectives was we would schedule a future meeting to work through that process.
We can do that.
Yep.
That
We
takes
can
up.
certainly do that.
Yeah. So what I will do in the survey is we're going to assume that everybody's working on this, and we will then look for priorities, the priorities that you all want to work on as a board. Are there specific days and times when you already are accustomed to meeting to do work outside of board meetings?
Typically, we have our individual committees meet prior to the board.
Okay.
And depending on what's going on, those committees either do or do not meet. Policy tends to meet on a regular basis. Personnel infrequently. Facilities, hopefully, will be meeting very frequently in the very near future. So that's been our structure to this point. But again, I think I was anticipating, like when we did our anti-bias training, we set up a series of specific meeting times and dates that was devoted to this one topic.
We can certainly do that.
We can do that.
Mm-hmm.
That helps us move forward almost immediately. So thank you for clarifying that. So what we will do in the survey is we'll gather information, and we'll talk to Shweta about this too, about let's set up some times when we could meet, or some months when we could meet, months and times when policy and facilities aren't meeting, and see what works best for everybody.
And how much time do you think we'd want to set aside for these meetings? That might also help.
This one went a little bit longer than we thought it would. I have found that anything on Zoom over an hour tends to really drag on. Mm-hmm. So should we shoot for no longer than 60 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe someday we'll be able to gather in person, because this type of work feels different when we're together.
Right.
But we'll figure it out.
And we're going to be reviewing our calendar, so we might have a better idea of some options.
That would be great. So if you can let Mark and me know this is when we want to meet, that's fine.
Yep.
And then we can figure that out. But yeah, if calendar discussion is already something that you're going to do, let's add this to the mix. I think this will really help you in your the other committees, the policies and the facilities committee too, subcommittees too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good time to be doing it. Anything else? So the way that Mark and I typically will work is Shweta is our contact. Unless, maybe as we're moving forward, we'll all be exchanging emails. But for right now, we're going to go through Shweta. That okay?
Sounds good.
Alrighty.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Yes. Thank you so much.
We'll type up some notes. Yeah.
Yep. And I will send the Jamboards that we worked on tonight, and so everyone will have them. And yeah, this is exciting. This is wonderful. So.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, everybody have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
We'll stay in touch.
Thank you, Shweta.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, are we back?
Yep.
We've been on the whole time. Yeah.
All right. So that completes that item. We were going to discuss consideration, discussion, and possible action on inclusive services work sessions. And I guess that's not going to happen now. So I will just move along in the agenda.
Rex,
Yes.
I unfortunately have another meeting at 8 o'clock that I have to physically go to. So if there are any things that require a vote, I don't want to, break the.
I think that There are the items under the annual report and also the adjacent county reimbursements will need board approval.
Do we have a quorum without Ginger?
We should have, yes.
Okay, I
Yes.
don't want to.
No, but thank you for saying something.
I don't want to break your meeting.
Thank you, Ginger.
Yeah, so, okay. So I'll stick
Okay.
around till 7:30 and then I'll probably duck out, so.
All right. Okay, library director's report, Swetha?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it brief. We've just been, everyone has the librarian's report. We've been doing a lot of work focusing on meetings with partner agencies. And this week, the Tenant Resource Center has been at the library during Express Technology hours in our community room to provide assistance for residents facing eviction. So they're helping with that application process. There's a moratorium in effect until March 31st. It'll likely be extended, so we'll be able to continue offering that service. And the first 2 days, I don't know that too many people knew about their presence here in Sun Prairie, but the past 2 days, every appointment has been filled, so.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So did you say that was the Tenant Resource Center coming
That's
in there?
correct. Yep.
Yeah, because they're doing the majority of that. Also, so I should just for you to know that we do have a program at Outreach to help homeless LGBTQ plus people called the Williams Fund. And we have been very fortunate to have that fund well funded through this time. So we've, at this point, I think we're up to about 60 grand that we've given away, but it goes really fast.
Ginger, I might touch base with you on that.
Sure. I'll send you some info on it.
Okay.
Ginger, are there items that can be donated to the homeless groups?
No, not really. We used to do most of that through, we used to have a little food pantry in our office. Our office is closed. Most of the food pantries are, on restricted hours. So not really.
I had a number of sleeping bags from my in-laws who had passed away, and they're really good shape, but do I just throw them away? I didn't want to.
You might want to give Tenant Resources a call and see if
who's that?
Tenant Resource Center.
Tenant.
I can email you about that, Ken.
Yeah, can we do this offline, please?
Sure. Okay. Sorry.
All right, thank you. Is Steve available, Swetha?
He is. I just want one more thing to share with the board, and that is that National Library Week is the week of April 5th. But because it's election week, the mayor, I have a proclamation prepared, and the mayor will actually be reading that at this coming city council meeting on March 16th. Once the agenda is set, I will send the agenda will have registration information so that anyone that wants to attend city council to hear the mayor read the proclamation, you will be able to do that. So I will send that along, and I know Sarah sent along with the reminder the proclamation that he would be reading.
Good, thank you.
Yes, and I want to introduce, thanks for Steve for being so patient to wait, but Steve Baker is our head of access and circulation services at the library, and he and his team have been really doing phenomenal work. They do phenomenal work all the time, but this year in particular, with all the challenges, they've really stepped up. So I wanted to give him an opportunity to share some of the great work they've been doing.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to send a link to you. I just have like a timeline prepared. It's in the chat right now. And it should, if you just click on there, it should bring you to a page on our website. And I'm just going to go through some highlights from each month of 2020, kind of talk a little bit about what the circulation department has done I'm also going to share my screen. I can do that just so that we're all on the same page. Let's see. Okay. So, usually in the past, I've had handouts to give you that have like a chart or graph or something exciting with some big numbers on it. But, 2020 was a really different kind of year. So, I just wanted to talk about the things that we did last year and just to give you a sense of the amount of work that the circulation staff has put in to make sure the library is able to continue to serve patrons through the pandemic. In January and February and up through March 15th were extremely busy months. In fact, if March would have finished out the way that it started, it would have been a record month for us as far as circulation goes in March. Unfortunately, as you can see on the timeline here, our last day of service was Sunday, March 15th, and we closed down. Initially, we thought for 2 weeks, and so almost all the projects that were ongoing were sort of halted at that time. And then only a handful of the full-time employees were able to continue working. Most of the part-time staff, there's not a whole lot they can do from home, especially in the circulation department, because the work is patron-centered and also transmitting and processing items through the library. So with the building being closed and everybody home, it was mainly myself doing access and circulation duties. So some of the things that I was able to accomplish that first few weeks, the big thing was the online library card application or the digital card application. And this is something that I think I've talked about in years past, and it's been a priority, and we've been trying to figure out a way to make it work. And thankfully, it just took just a few days, actually. By the end of the first week, we had the form on the website and ready to go. There were a couple things that I had to tweak on it, but otherwise, by the end of that first week, we were already receiving card applications for new applicants. So that was really great. Since then, we've processed over 800 new digital patron applications. And then we've been in contact with dozens more patrons who have filled out the form to request, more information or to update their address, things like that. So, even though the form is online and patrons fill it out and it gets sent to an email to myself, it's not an automated process. So, patrons fill out the form, but then information from each account has to be manually entered into our circulation software by a staff member. And then every patron is emailed individually with all their new library account information. And then, any follow-up information about those accounts or about what they can access. So that's been keeping us busy. And, like I said, in March, I was just kind of doing that on my own. So that was a big part of what I was doing. And then updating the website daily, trying to keep everything updated as it kind of, as we became aware that we were probably going to be closed for a little longer than 2 weeks. We kind of went into high gear, getting new graphics in place and new ways of showing our digital services to patrons. I was also able to make some social media accounts and updates. We had a Twitter and Instagram account that hadn't been used for a long time, so I reactivated those and have been trying to get updates out on those as much as possible. Facebook is really where most of our social media work goes into. And just to give you an example, in 2019, we had about 170,000 interactions on our Facebook page. Since March since March 15th up until yesterday, we had over 400,000 interactions. So that doubled with the pandemic. That doubled, and also it became really obvious pretty quickly that people were getting information about the library's hours from just Googling the library and not actually going to our site. So I had to make sure that our Google business listing was updated, and anyone who is running a business or anything like that knows how important that is. And ours hadn't been updated in a long time, and there was nobody that was keeping it updated. So I was able to do all that. And I mean, we had 51,000 visitors on our website over the past year, and over 31,000 of them got there just by Googling the word Sun Prairie Library. So it's really important to have that updated. So, the first few weeks up through the end of March, I was really busy just, getting all of our website stuff in order and updated. And then in April, we had some limited staff returning, mainly full-time workers, just coming in every day or two. We had a lot of holds to process still from when we closed, which meant that we had to we contacted each person that had a hold available individually, and then had them just set up a curbside appointment just to come and pick it up. So it was really limited to just people who had things on the shelf when we closed. So that was pretty limited service, but that took us through the end of April. May is really when everything kind of kicked in. And I wanted to highlight three of my staff members in particular, Cheryl, Nicole, and Amy. I put it out to all the circulation staff. People felt safe coming in. At that point, we didn't really know, how quickly the virus was spreading and things like that. But the three of them felt like they could return, and they came back and worked pretty much every day on site, trying to get things working again. We continued a limited curbside service. We opened our book drops to receive limited returns. We also were running our holds queue every day just to pull things for patrons who live in Sun Prairie. So we weren't sending anything out in delivery at that point because that was on hold. And then in summer, the library began to offer express service hours. So by that time, I think almost all of the circulation staff had returned. We created a second shift for staff to come in so that everyone wasn't working the same space at the same time. So during summer, which is June, July, August, we had over 3,000 curbside pickups were scheduled and completed. We had almost 48,000 items unpacked from over 1,000 delivery bins. We were running the holds queue every day. We were able to expand the book drops a little bit with new return bins. And I don't know if any of you remember seeing some of the pictures that we had with our book drops, but we were having problems with people, waiting in line to get to the book drops. They were only open 2 days a week because we were quarantining everything. So we had lines that would sometimes go through our parking lot, out onto Linnerud, and all the way down to past the theater. And we had a lot of problems with that. But we were able to add some extra return bins. And you can see there's a picture of the yellow return bin there on the timeline. Just to give you an idea, before we closed in mid-March, there were around 70,000 items checked out from our collection and from other libraries. So those were all checked out and waiting to be returned. And our book drop can hold at most about 500 items if all the bins are removed and things just pile up on the floor. So there's 70,000 items, and people could only return them 2 days a week. So it was a struggle to get everything brought back to the library to get information out to people to make sure they understood that we were open for limited services and that they could actually return things here. People are used to returning items from other libraries here, so we were getting a lot of returns from DeForest and Madison branches. So that was kind of a struggle. Got a little stressful at times. We were out in the parking lot directing traffic and, trying our best to make sure that everyone could get their items returned. We had almost 300 digital cards created. And then one of the other good things we were able to do that summer was we eliminated daily overdue fines on everything in our collection because people were having such a hard time getting things returned. There were just fines stacking up we only had fines on a few items in the collection, but it was enough that people were struggling. So we just eliminated fines on everything. So now we're officially fine free across our whole library. So when September, in September, we started using the Kapira Curbside software. And this is some like a reservation software that the library system, several libraries in the system had evaluated and decided that it would be really good to use. Unfortunately, the company got bought right before we went online with it and didn't have the best customer service. Sorry, I don't want to badmouth the company in a meeting, but we had some problems with it. We're still using it now, and patrons from their perspective, I think it works really well. You can just go to our website, log in with a few clicks. You can make a reservation to pick up a hold. From the staff side, there's a lot more work that has to be done, and our workflow changed quite a bit at that point. So we had around 3,000 curbside appointments in the summer. Once we started with Kapira, those appointments more than doubled. So we had over 7,000 appointments throughout the fall months, and that doesn't count walk-up people that didn't have appointments. Certain people weren't able to access the website, or a lot of times there would be no appointments left for the day. They would be completely full, but people needed to get their stuff. So they would just walk up and ask if they could just have it from our lobby desk. So we started doing that, and I have to say it was really stressful, and I think overwhelming for some staff members. Definitely added a layer of stress. So I'm really happy that we were able to get through that, and we had to talk through and change procedures several times in order to make sure that everything worked, so that now things are working pretty smoothly. Another thing that happened in the fall, we were able to reopen the book drops daily, so that was great. There was some new guidance that came down from the library system that said that we didn't have to quarantine things for 5 days. We could quarantine for 24 hours instead. So that freed up the book drops between all the yellow bins that we had purchased for extra returns. We were able to, we had enough materials to manage the returns and quarantine things that had been returned. So then we were able to open the book drops 24 hours a day again. So that all went back to normal pretty much, which I think was nice for everybody. And I really credit Jan Holmes with that, because she kind of took it upon herself to run some tests and do some measurements and try to figure out what would be the best way to get that working again. And Jan is the technology coordinator here, but everyone's been working together really well between Jan's department and tech services and circulation. We're the kind of the main team that has been around every day and People have been working together really well across departments, so that's been really helpful. So when COVID cases spiked again in November, we closed our building for all services but technology. And we expanded curbside a little bit so that we allowed people to just drive up without an appointment, and then had staff run things out. And you know, we did that for a little while until the winter weather sort of threatened to overwhelm us. So our first big snow, we had we were able to switch to our drive-up window. And the drive-up window was a really cool idea that I have to admit I wasn't 100% on board with it at first, because I was a little concerned that there just wasn't enough space in our driveway for it. And you know, after seeing problems all summer with people trying to return things in long lines in the parking lot, I was a little nervous about it, but it's been working really great. So in December, we started a Sunday drive-through window service, which added some extra hours of service every week. So we were running curbside 34 hours a week, which, you know, it's not as many hours as we had been open before the pandemic. But, you know, as you can see, the final circulation numbers, you know, we had, you know, over 270,000 physical items checked out from our building. Our digital accounts that we had created were over 1,100. Our website visits, you know, not surprisingly, just went up about a 60% increase. So we had 64,000 individual people visiting who visited our website over 2020. And then the holds that we filled, which is an important part of what we do, and that can be either sending holds out to other libraries or just people picking up holds here. And we had over 109,000 holds filled. So it was a busy year. You know, people. I think there's a general idea that because we're not open, we're not maybe doing as much. But I mean, I know, you know, the staff that have been running programs virtually have just been working extra hard on that. And in circulation, certainly we, in addition to trying to work through, you know, whatever family issues that people were having, you know, kids being off school for the whole year, the workload really increased. Before the pandemic, our work was assisted a lot by our inside book drop, which utilizes our automated sorting machine. And we weren't able to use the inside book drop at all. And then we have, of course, when people pick up holds inside the building, they're able to use self-checkout kiosks. So we weren't able to use those at all either. So losing those machine helpers, you know, staff have to handle every single item multiple times through every step of the process until we finally hand the items to the patron in person. So it is a lot of extra work. And I know for sure that people have really appreciated it. You know, people have been very, very vocal about thanking us. And, you know, some people have been disappointed that we're not open to the public for browsing. But, you know, as you can see, we haven't been shut down, really. I mean, we've served a lot of people and, you know, had, you know, almost 280,000 items being checked out in 2020. So we're definitely looking forward to getting our vaccines and hopefully reopening to the public later this year. Does anybody have any questions?
It's interesting to have your perspective, Steve, with everything what went on with pandemic. I think you're right. What you do is invisible, and that's too bad.
Yeah, I mean, we did post some videos early on just to show people how some of the things work behind the scenes, and I think people appreciated that. But you know, there's only so much you can show people Yeah, I mean, staff, I'm really thankful for the staff that we have. Everyone was able to complete their tasks safely. We had a lot of constructive discussion about new policies and procedures that I think really brought us together as a staff.
Well, thank you so much, Steve. That was a really great presentation. We all learned a lot.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for being patient with us tonight.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for serving on the board, everybody. Good night.
Good night. All right, moving along to committee reports. I'm going to skip down to one I know have them. Ken, do you have anything from the Friends?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I think they're going to be
You're not able to attend to the board meeting?
they're going to be meeting, let's see.
They meet Monday.
Yeah, this Monday. So
okay.
Okay.
Okay, I have two items from the foundation. The first is that they've decided to have a spring fundraising event, which is going to be linked with National Library Week. It's going to kick off that week and then run the month of April. And you can fill in the details, Swetha, but staff have identified updating the conference rooms to do video conferencing. And the foundation is going to build the entire campaign around that specific item.
Yeah, it'll actually be the discussion rooms that would be the space to assist with the workforce development and, as you said, teleconferencing, you know, for various needs around workforce development and telehealth possibly too.
Okay. And actually what we're going to focus on for the campaign is the service, not the equipment, because equipment's boring. And the second thing from the foundation is a bit unfortunate. Our executive director, because of some family situations, needs to move out of the Wisconsin. She is going to continue on because we're doing everything virtually anyway, but we are going to have to look at making a transition probably late this year or early next year to a new executive director, but we'll make it. But that's the only two things in the foundation. Any questions about the foundation? Okay. Moving on to unfinished business, consideration, discussion, and possible action on the 2020 annual report. Swetha?
Sure. So the annual report was actually due on the last day of February, but because of the timing of things, it's included in the March packet. Rex has signed the annual report and it has been submitted, but it does need an actual vote from the board to approve the annual report. But if there's anything specific that you'd want me to go over, I can, but I think Steve's presentation actually captures our year really well. And the biggest takeaways are that a lot of physical, obviously physical visits and physical circulation was way down, but digital was way up, including our website visitors. The number of programs and attendance was down. However, the attendance that you see in our programs just represents the live views. We know that many patrons are going back to watch recorded views, and those aren't detailed in the annual report. So that's something also to keep in mind when looking at this. So, but I'd be happy to go over any other details in the annual report, but I know it's getting to be a late night and I don't want to hold everyone up for too long.
Anyone have any questions about the report? I think every library in the state of Wisconsin is going to have a similar report this year.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
Now, at the last meeting, we just approved me signing it. Do we have to actually approve the report
Yeah.
now? Okay.
So moved.
I'll second.
Support.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, thank you. Unfinished 8B, consideration, discussion, and possible action on the library expansion we've previously discussed. We'll move on to new business, consideration, discussion, and possible action on the library board calendar.
Rex, I'm wondering if people feel like they have the energy to look at this right now. I think this was tied in also to the sessions that we would be devoting to the inclusive services work.
Okay,
So I'm not sure how, if you want to go through the current calendar and see where inclusive services could fit, or how you want to handle that.
how are people feeling? Since we're literally zoomed out at this, I guess I would be in favor of, we have to plug in the work with the South Central staff. Perhaps we could just reconsider this at the next meeting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, we can put that back on the agenda.
okay, thank you. Anyone opposed to that? Okay,
We'll just have it on unfinished business.
correct. Next item, consideration, discussion, and possible action on adjacent county reimbursement request.
Yes, and this one will take action.
Right,
It's a formality typically. So this is a form that is in your packet. It looks like that. This filling out this form gives consent to charge our adjacent counties for the service. And I will let you know that because 2020 activity is factored in, we will be receiving a little less this year. It'll be about, the estimation is somewhere around $4,000 to $4,500 less in adjacent county revenue this year. What we're looking for tonight is action on the board to give permission to the South Central Library System to bill the adjacent counties, which are Columbia, Dodge, Greene, Jefferson, Rock, and Sauk County for usage. And then all we would need is a signature if that's the case. And Rex and I can make arrangements for him to come in to sign the document.
I'll move to approve.
I'll support it.
thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. That concludes our business for this evening. I appreciate everyone's time and patience tonight. Just one final word. This is the date that 1 year ago, all of our lives changed. And certainly on this board and working with this library, we have lived through a number of changes too. And I hope everyone just takes a few moments today to reflect on this past year, on the good things that have happened, how life has changed, how we have changed, and at least from my view, how the future is still very bright. Anyone have any other comments?
We've had through this, both from our director and the staff and from the president of the board. You've done a great job, Rex.
Thank you. You've all done a great job.
Well, on behalf of the entire library staff, I want to thank the board for being so supportive and really taking the health and well-being, physical and mental, into all your thought and consideration. Very appreciated.
All right, thank you. Motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second that.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you, everyone.